Today's stuff we're going to be learning is Bava Batra Daf Kapchet. As I said, excited to be starting Parak Ches Karabatim, a very central chapter in this Masechet and in general in the Shas, and you'll see as we get through it. Today's stuff is sponsored by Mark Goldstein in honor of Rena Sefti Goldstein's birthday. Happy birthday to my wonderful wife and Daf partner. A few short announcements, just a reminder, Thursday will be our last Zoom day for the next month, and then we'll be taking a break till the end of August. I'm right now scheduled to start on August 28th, back with the Zoom. I'll be speaking both in Chicago on July 31st and also in Long Island on August 19th, if anybody wants to join. So you can get in touch and let us know. We'll give you all the details. Also, Gefet went up yesterday a little bit late, the English on Grama and Garme. If you remember, we had all that discussion about Grama and Rabbi Yosef's position, so you can listen to that. That went up, and now it's a good, interesting shiur. More again, but all the extra shiurim get to do is to go more in depth into things you'll see today about flashback, something that, in Daf we're going to touch for a minute, but there's a whole article about it, about caper bushes, and, to better understand what the Gemara is talking about. So let's get started now with our chapter. What we're talking about here, now the word chazaka means all sorts of things in the Gemara, right? There could be a chazaka of, there's assumptions about human behavior, right? A chazaka that a person does the following thing and we assume, and based on that, we're going to create legal, different laws. There's chazaka on land, which is not to be confused with this chazaka. In fact, one of the Mishnayot later in the chapter is going to say, don't confuse these two concepts, okay? Which is, you can acquire land through chazaka. It's one of the methods. You might remember this. That's not what we're talking about right now. Okay, we will make mention of it later in the Masechet when the Mishna does, but that's called chazaka on land where, okay, let's just talk about it so that we don't confuse these terms. If I purchase land from you, now there's different ways you can purchase items. If you remember, movable property, in order to purchase it, you actually have to pull it, move it, do something to it. If I just give you money, by law, that's not acquired yet, and I can just change my mind whenever I want and say, oh, I don't really want to buy this. But once I pull the item, I can no longer do that. With land, you can't pull it. So there's different ways of acquiring land, either by money. Money actually works, although we're going to learn that in a case, well, we'll get to the second one, and then we'll talk about it in a minute, shor, a document. That means that's usually the most logical way that people acquire land. Once you sign a contract, so it's acquired by you. However, the money, we're going to see that in a place, and we talked about this in Kiddushin, in a place which was very common in those days where people always wrote documents, money is not even sufficient to acquire land. You also have to have a document. If everybody has documents, then that's not going to work. But there's a third way, which is called chazaka, which means if we talk about, I'm going to purchase this land, and then I go and I do an action in the land that affects the land. I put up a door, a wall, a fence, something like that, or I open an entrance to the house, or different kind of actions. The field I could plow, or we'll see, okay, I could plow it. Then I basically show ownership. You wouldn't let me do that unless I had actually acquired it. But again, that's when there's an act of acquiring, and there's no argument between you and me about who owns the land. It's just that you're selling me land, and we agreed about it, and I go in and I do an act of chazaka. I can acquire the land by that act of chazaka. Okay, there's some details we'll get into about that, but that's one kind of chazaka. We're talking about something different. We're talking about something that if in this case, I eat produce for 3 years on a field, okay? Now, it's not just I'm living in the field, but I benefit from it, okay? I eat the produce, which, by the way, we're going to use the word eat, okay? Achla, we're going to always, throughout this chapter, we're going to have a million times the word achla shnei chazaka, which means you eat it for the years of the chazaka, meaning the 3 years. What it really means is I benefited from it, meaning I could have sold it. It doesn't mean I actually have to physically eat all the produce in all the field, but I benefit from it. I sell it, I do something with it. Then you come along and say, hey, why are you on my property? And I say, what do you mean? I bought it from you. This is a halacha that's going to have to be. It's called, I have to have a ta'ana, I have to have a claim. Either I bought it from you, or the claim is I got it as a gift from you. Okay? Now, you'll say, well, where's your shtar? Because there's almost always a shtar. And I say, oh, I lost it. Okay? I don't know where it is anymore. After 3 years, there's an assumption, and this is again, we're going to see there might be some other interpretation to the 3 years, but this is the mainstream interpretation. There's an expectation that you only hold documents for 3 years. After 3 years, you don't really think anyone's going to come and complain and say, this is my land. You've been living there for 3 years and you have to add, and no one's complained. Meaning, I'm taking the produce every day of these 3 years or whenever the produce is growing, and you don't complain. Now, if you complain and you start saying, hey, you're on my land, and we start having a whole fight about it, I'm certainly not going to lose that document. I'm going to protect that document because I know I'm going to end up in court with you one day. But if you don't complain for 3 years, there's an assumption, right? I know in Israeli law, the tax authorities can request documentation up to 7 years. They can't ask for documentation from 8 years ago. So people throw out their documents, after 7 years pass. Same thing here. There was an assumption that people either throw it away or don't keep it, right? They didn't have safes in those days. So we assume after 3 years, people might lose their documents, and therefore we give you an alternative way to prove it. Now, there's a few things. Number one, it can't be that you protested within the 3 years, because if you protested, then I would have kept my shor. And the fact that I don't have it, well, that shows weakness on my part, shows that maybe there really wasn't one, and maybe it really is stolen property, because obviously if it's stolen property, I won't have a document for it. Okay, so that's one. Number one, no protest. If you protested, this whole law is irrelevant. Okay, now we'll even mention it today. We're going to mention a lot of the big issues today. What if you protested not in front of me? Okay, is that going to be a valid protest? We're going to see on Daf, I think it's Lamed Chet, the Gemara is going to conclude that there's a machloket about it, but it is okay. Why is that okay? Well, we'll get to that today. Okay, we'll make mention of it. So, number one, I've been there 3 years enjoying the produce. You haven't protested, and I have a claim that I bought it. If I don't claim I bought it, I just say, like a squatter, oh, I've been living here, proven facts on the ground, it's mine. I can't do that because I could have stolen it. That's not a proof. Okay, I have to have a claim. Now, we don't know if my claim is accurate or not. I could be lying. But I have to come with a claim that I purchased it, or I got it as a gift, or I inherited it, something like that. If I don't have my own claim, the court's not going to say, oh, well, you must have bought it, because I should say I bought it. And if I'm not willing to say I bought it, they assume I probably stole it. Okay, we'll also discuss that today. So we're going to get to all the big issues already in the first class, even though we're going to have a lot of time. Okay, this chapter, by the way, we'll just check, but it goes till at least, I think, maybe it ends. Yeah, it ends like just before we're going to go back on Zoom. Okay, so this is basically going to cover us till the end of August. Okay, I'll stop mid-sentence and we'll just start explaining. A chazaka, okay, which is what we're talking about here, of the 3 years. We'll see in the Mishna, maybe it's not exactly 3 years, okay, but it's usually talked about as a 3-year chazaka of houses, of borot shichin ma'arot. These are all different kinds of ways they would collect water. Okay, either a round bore, which is a pit that's round, that you store water in. Shichin is a long, narrow, like almost maybe like a long, narrow, rectangular ditch that they would dig, that they would also store water in there. And a ma'ara is more like square, rectangular, but it has a cover. Ma'ara usually means a cave. What it means here is it has a cover, like a cave would have a cover, possibly, not always, but that's what they call again, for storing water. Vashavachot, the dovecotes. Hamer chatzaot, bathhouses. Beit habadin, olive presses. Ubeit hashlachim. This is a field that needs irrigation. Okay, that means you water it. Ve'havadim, and slaves. Ve'kol shehu oseh perot tadil. And anything that produces something that has value, monetary value, okay, like the water, you collect water that has value to it. There's doves in there. There's a merchatz, right, a bathhouse, which you can rent out, or you can do something with Beit Habadin, you're making olives, okay? All these things, slaves produce, right, money because they work and you gain the money. All these things are constantly producing fruits, okay, and constantly, not like one time a year. That's the main thing here. Since they're constantly producing things, therefore, to create a chazaka, you need 3 years complete, meaning from the beginning of the year till the end of the year. I don't think they mean Rosh Hashanah till the end of the year or something like that. They mean right from day 1 till day 300, whether Jewish calendar, not right, solar calendar, whatever, but, let's say 354 days a year, okay, on the Jewish calendar, we're talking about a complete year. However, steh habal, which works on rainwater only, and therefore only produces once a year, really, because there's a season where it produces. And when the rainy season's over, that's it. It doesn't produce. If you water it all the time, then it could produce all year long. But if it's a field that works based on rainwater only, we're assuming the produce is going to come out once a year. And therefore, you need 3 years still, but not miyom liyom. Okay, we're going to have 3 different categories in our Mishna. Okay, there's the first category is it's constantly producing peirot. You need 3 complete years. The second is it doesn't only produces once a year, so you don't need 3 complete years. How much do you need? Right. Well, we're going to have later. We'll get to a Gemara on this about how exactly to read this sentence. But let's just go with this is the topic sentence, and then we're going to have a machloka between Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva. Some people think there's 3 opinions here, and that the first one's already an opinion. But let's go with that's the topic sentence. Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva have a debate now. Rabbi Yishmael omer, 3 חודשים בראשונה, 3 באחרונה ו12 חודש באמצע. הרי י"ח חודש. 18 months. You're going to have 3 months of the first year when it's producing the produce, and you eat the produce that is producing this around the course of 3 months. Then the middle year, you need a complete year because it's in between the 2 years. You're obviously going to need to pass a complete year to get to the 3rd year. And then the 3rd year, you only need 3 months of collecting the produce. Okay, so altogether, you need 18 months of proof of eating peirot, okay, of being on the field. Rabbi Akiva says, chodesh barishona, chodesh ba'achrona, u'shneim-atzar chodesh ba'emtza, harei yudalid chodesh. Says in this case, you only need 1 month in each of the first year and the last year. Amar Rabbi Yishmael, b'ameh dvarim amurim. Now Rabbi Yishmael says, well, what I was discussing before, that's bistei lavan. That's a field of grains. Okay, why is it called white? So some of the interpretations are because some interpret because when they grow, right, stalks of wheat, and when you look from a distance, it looks white because it's very pale in color. So this is in a wheat field. Aval b'stei ilan, but if it's trees, then it's a whole different story. Kanaset tfuato, masaket seitav, kanaset ketzo, harei elu 3 shanim. If you bring in your tfuah, now tfuah usually means grains. Here it doesn't mean grains. It means if you bring in your wine, okay? Because there's a pasuk that says tfuah hakerem, which is talking about the vine, the vineyard. So basically, here you need 3 different actions. It could be over the course of a year. There's no need for 3 years because, well, let's talk about it. What Rabbi Yishmael is basically saying is, and this goes back to, you must have heard this in life in general, right? In other halachic areas, you can create a chazaka for various things. Okay, there's all sorts of things that we create chazakas for. We've learned about them in the Gemaras as well, where even people say if you do something good 3 times in a row, you now have to keep doing it because you created a chazaka on it, right? There's all sorts of issues about chazaka. Okay, we're going to get to one main one like a shor muad, okay, and that's going to be a comparison. And we're going to see eventually, I don't want to ruin the daf, but eventually after we get to the shor muad comparison, we have a lot of questions about it. Eventually, we're going to say the shor muad comparison really only works according to Rabbi Yishmael, which makes perfect sense. Because what Rabbi Yishmael is saying here is, you just need to create a chazaka. What's a chazaka? Well, if I did actions with grapes and I brought in my wine, and then I made my olives into olive oil, and I brought in my dried figs, well, what's that if not a chazaka? I've done 3 different actions. So in a fruit field, it's going to be different than a wheat field. Okay, in a wheat field, you're going to need these 3 years. But in a fruit, if you have fruits in all different kinds, by doing 3 different actions with 3 different fruits, that's enough to basically show ownership. Okay? That's harei elu 3 shanim. It doesn't mean it's 3 years. It's as if it's 3 years. So we have really 3 categories. One that creates produce all the time. For that, you're going to need 3 complete years because there's this assumption that the owner, might be waiting to complain and, till the season's over, and the season's constantly going. So you have 3 complete years. If the season's only certain times of year, then you actually only need 3 months in the first and the last year, or maybe 1 month in the first and the last year. And then you're going to have this 3rd opinion, this 3rd case of trees, which, if you're having fruits, it's going to be a different story, and you can create a chazaka only according to Rabbi Yishmael not having anything to do with years, but actions. Okay, and yes, you're going to need to prove all this. You're going to need witnesses. We're going to get into all sorts of cases of witnesses as well. Okay, we're going to have a lot of cases in this chapter because there's a lot of, this was a real legitimate issue of these land ownership claims. I'm the owner. What are you talking about? I'm the owner. I've been living here. I've been taking the produce from this field. I've been, right? And we're going to have a lot of, I got it from my father. I inherited it. I bought it. Okay, we're going to have a lot of claims on what we do and what kind of proof is needed. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So the first question, which is the only question we're going to really deal with today, is where do we get to this concept of 3 years? So Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Shamati meholchei Usha. From those in Usha, which is one of the places, if you remember, the Sanhedrin, after it went to Yavne, after the destruction, right, it moves to Yavne, the Sanhedrin went to, I think it was 10 different places, or 10, wasn't necessarily 10 places, but it kind of moved from Jerusalem to different places. And then from then, okay, in the second temple time period, Shamati me'ochei Usha shayu omrim, so it went, after Yavne, it went to Usha, and they would say, Minayin lechazaka shalosh shanim, mishor hamuad. So I heard from Chachmei Usha, Rabbi Yochanan says, that is a shor hamuad. It's like shor hamuad. Now, what's shor hamuad? Remember, a shor gores, okay? An ox gores 1 time, 2 times, okay? If the first time, the second time, the third time, the owner only has to pay half damages. But if every time after it damages, the owner was warned, and then after the third time, okay, there's a debate whether it's the second time or the third time, but we're going here with the third time. After the third time, if it gores a 4th time, then the owner has to pay full damages, because we assume that a shor doesn't just gore people for no reason, okay? And we assume that regular shor doesn't do that, so the owner wasn't expected to watch the shor so much from that. But once it happens 3 times, it creates what we call a chazaka, and therefore we make an assumption that the shor is a goring kind of ox, and therefore the owner has to watch it more. If they did it, they have to pay full damages. So therefore we say, Ma shor hamuad kevan shenagach shalosh nigichot nafik le mechezkatam v'kam le b'chezkat muad. We basically change its status. It's no longer a shor tam and subject to those rules. It becomes a shor muad and subject to different rules. So we basically switch the status of the shor. Hachanami, likewise in our case, kevan de'achlat tlat shanim. Once someone is enjoying the produce of the field for 3 years, nafik le mereshut mocher v'kaim alai bereshut lokech. We basically say, this land changed status, which really means here, not status of is it a shor tam, a shor muad. It changes ownership, and it moves from being owned by the person, the seller, and in the hands of the buyer. Now, it's a little weird they call them seller and buyer. It's not really seller and buyer, because the seller claims I didn't sell the land. The buyer claims I bought the land. But basically what they mean is from the person who was the original owner to the person who now is the owner, who claims they're the owner. So 3 years can shift things in this way. You have to remember, if I claim I own this land, I've been enjoying the produce for 3 years and I claim I'm the owner. And you say, what are you talking about? There was never a sale. You stole it from me. Now, I don't have a document. If I had a document, I can obviously prove it, and then there's nothing to discuss. This is in the absence of a document proving ownership. What's the only document we have or proof that you were the original owner? You have what's called cheskat marikam. That means the ownership of the first owner. You have a much stronger proof than I do, because you've been living there for many more years before me, and you maybe even still have your document. Okay, what I claim is, well, you might have a document, but I have a new one, just I lost it. I don't have it anymore. Or you gifted it to me, and I just don't have the document showing that you gifted it to me. But your chazaka is very strong. However, once I have 3 years, that overrides your chazaka, basically. Because again, 3 years without protest. Okay, if you protested, it's a different story. And again, this is, according to most, it's because we can assume that after 3 years, I might have lost my document, and we don't expect me to save it for more than 3 years. But again, it's the 3 years, which are like, we're basically going to compare them to the 3 nigichot of the shor, the 3 gorings. So eating produce for year 1, eating produce for year 2, eating produce for year 3. The Gemara is going to have a lot of questions about this comparison, because it's a bit of a weird comparison. It's very different. So, first of all, one is one action, and one is an action over the course of an entire year, right? It's a little bit different. So the Gemara is going to have 4 difficulties with this. We're going to answer them all except for the last one, whereas I already told you in advance, we're going to have to say that this only matches Rabbi Yishmael, and then we're going to say, so then what are the rabbis? Where do they get 3 years from? And we're going to try to bring another proof, but we're going to end the daf with a bit of a question on that proof, and we're going to have to finish it up tomorrow. So question number 1. Ima shor muad, now shor muad, you're not obligated to pay full damages until it actually gores a 4th time. So are you going to say hachanami ad shana revi'it lo kaima b'reshute until the 4th year finishes? Maybe it's not really yours. And there's just like shor muad, it doesn't end at 3 years. At 3 years, that's only when it starts. At 3 years, right? If there's a 4th nigicha, then you become. And there's no significance to being a shor muad unless you gore a 4th time. So maybe there's no significance to the 3 years of chazaka unless you live there for an entire 4th year, another year, and only then can you prove ownership. Bit of a weird comparison, which is what the Gemara is going to say. So they say, right? So again, hachanami, maybe you'd say until the end of the 4th year, maybe it's not yours. So hachi hashta, what you're comparing the two, they're 2 totally different comparisons. Hatan michinagach shalosh nigichot having muad. That's shor. Once it does 3 gorings, it is a shor muad, which is what we're going to say here. Once you eat 3 years and you can prove I enjoy the produce for 3 years, it is yours. Okay, you don't need a 4th year to prove it. Turning now to Abaye. It's just there. Idach ki lo nagach mai l'shalem. Well, you're not going to have to pay anything just for being a shor muad, right? You're only going to have to pay. It's true. The next thing that comes in, the only ramification is if you gore a 4th time, but that has no bearing on this. Our ramifications are immediate. Once you prove 3 years, I'm the owner. Well, then you're the owner. Okay, so the implications are immediate. Whereas a shor muad, the implications aren't. Not only are they not immediate, they're not even necessary. It could be your shor will never gore again, and then it's irrelevant that it's a shor muad. So hacha kevan da'achla tlat shnei kaima la b'reshute. But here, once you eat 3 years, it already becomes yours, and therefore we kick it immediately. That's not a good question. Second difficulty. Ela me'ata chazaka she'eni mata'ana ta'avi chazaka, and ala matnan calls chazaka she'eni mata'ana ena chazaka. Now, in order for a short time to become a shor muad, all you need is proof that there were 3 gorings. So theoretically, if we're going to compare it, all you need in our case is proof that you lived there for 3 years. Again, just like with the shor, you're going to need witnesses that said the shor, the ox gored. Likewise, here you're going to need witnesses that said you lived there for first year, you lived there for the 2nd year, you lived there for the 3rd year, and meaning, and you ate the produce, right? You ate peirot, you sold it, whatever you did with it. But why would you need to make a claim, I bought it? Shouldn't it be enough? And this is a good question, right? Why do you need to have a claim? I bought it. If I come to court and say, I've been living here for 3 years and I can prove it, but I don't say I bought it, we worry that maybe I'm a thief. But why? If chazaka works, presumptive ownership, right? I did something for 3 years, that proves I'm the owner. Why would I need to say I bought it? Should be enough. Just like shor muad. As long as you prove there were 3 nigichot, so the shor is a shor muad. So that's why it says here, a chazaka without a claim, like I bought it or I got it as a gift, should work. And why does it say in the Mishna? It doesn't work. So tamamai da'amrinan, well, why does this whole thing work? This, that we believe me once I've eaten there for 3 years. Because remember, it's your word claiming I stole the land, that you're the rightful owner, versus my word, which says I've been living here for 3 years. And really what I'm saying is I'm a legitimate owner. Now, I can only be a legitimate owner if I actually purchased it from you or got it as a gift from you. So da'amrinan, here we believe me about the 3 years because we say dilma kidikamal. Maybe the truth is, they're not denying that I've been in the land for 3 years, but you're denying that it belongs to me. You're claiming you're the owner. So all the court is saying is the 3 years prove that it's like I said. Now, what I said was, if I just said I'm living here, that's not enough. I have to say I bought it. If I didn't say I bought it, hashi iu lo time, if I didn't claim I bought it, basically we want the litonle. What, the court's going to claim I bought it when I'm not even willing myself to say I bought it? In other words, just because I can prove I lived there, it could be I stole it. And if I'm not willing to say I didn't steal it, I bought it, well, then why would the court say that for me? So therefore, again, we're going to say the comparison works, but there's different needs here, which is it's not enough to just live there because I could have stolen it and be living there. And that's the whole argument between me and you. So therefore, I have to basically, now I have to say how I got to the land. Otherwise, I could definitely be lying and just having stolen it and be living there for 3 years. Matkifla, third question, Rav Avira. This is a different issue. Now, while I said you have to protest, okay, you have to, if you want to not, if you want to disprove my claim, right, one way you could do it is by saying I protested. And remember what we said. If you protest, how does it work? Well, I shouldn't, the whole assumption is after 3 years, I don't really spend the effort trying to save this document because who cares? At 3 years, right, statute of limitations, I don't really need it. But if you've complained throughout those 3 years, then I'm definitely going to keep it because I know that there's some fight going on here and that I'm going to have to prove it at some point and we're going to end up in court. So I keep the document. But that's only if I know about it. Just like the shor muad. The shor muad, what did I mention? It's not enough that the shor gored 3 times. It's that each time they had to warn me in between and say, hey, you know your ox gored and prove it to me. And then, I have to go through a process where I know about it, and then I'm supposed to protect the shor more. But if I don't know about it, then I'm not liable full damages after 3 times. So again, if we're going to make this comparison, and it makes logical sense to say this, then when you protest, it has to be in front of me. Right? Even if we don't make the comparison to the shor muad, the whole reason for the protesting is, you're saying, I still think it's my land. And I'm then expected to keep my shtar. So my 3 years are not going to work against a protest. But that's only if I know about the protest. So shouldn't a protest have to happen in front of me for it to be a valid protest to basically knock out my creating a chazaka here? And in fact, right, so let's just go back and read it inside again. Matkifla Rav Avira, he says, according to this comparison, if you protest not in front of me, it shouldn't be a protest. So we're going to see later on, I think it's definitely where it comes up, where the Gemara ultimately concludes. It's going to come up a few times. But the Gemara is going to ultimately conclude that a mecha'ah shelo b'fanav is actually fine. It doesn't have to be done in front of me, even though there's a debate about it, and some people think it does. But in the end, it doesn't have to be done in front of me. You could lodge a protest anywhere, and it's fine. So why? That shouldn't work. Dumia de shor muad. It should be just like a shor muad. Just like the shor muad, the owner has to be warned to his face or to her face. Likewise, here the same thing. So they say no, because hatam vihu ba'alafti. First of all, there's a pasuk in the Torah there that says, and you warn the owner, which means it has to be done to the owner's face. But hacha, in our case, you don't need it. Why don't you need it? Because first of all, there's no verse that says you have to do it. And what's the whole issue? We want to make sure that I know that you lodged a protest. Well, I'm going to know anyway, even if you don't do it in front of me, because chavrech chavri itle, v'chavre de chavrech chavre itle. Because friend has friend who has friend who has friend, word travels. If you're going to lodge a protest and say, Michelle's living in my land, you think I'm not going to hear about that? Everyone's going to be talking about it. And of course, it's going to get back to me. But we're going to get to another Mishna in a little while, which talks about the difference in a few days about, there's certain areas where people aren't allowed to go from that area, and therefore word won't get around. So we'll talk about that. But basically, we assume that word is going to get around, and therefore we're going to see a whole big machloket about this. Actually, it's where is it? It's coming up soon. Anyway, okay, right. No, it is long to come. Okay, so anyway, right, exactly, WhatsApp, right? Without WhatsApp, you're certainly right. It's in those days that wasn't so simple. Ula Rabbi Meir, fourth question. To Amar rigchik nigichotav chayav, kirev nigichotav lo koshkin. Here we're going to have our biggest problem, because here we're really not going to be able to get around this, except by saying in the end that you have to say Rabbi Yishmael at the end of our Mishna. Otherwise, it really doesn't make sense, the comparison. Because according to Rabbi Meir, there's a debate, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda. You might remember this, you might not, it's fine, but we're going to just discuss Rabbi Meir right now. If this shor muad has, gores, and then later gores again, and another time gores again, and they're separate from each other, you're still become a shor muad, right? The ox still becomes a shor muad, and you'll be liable full damages. But all the more so if kireg nigichotav. Okay? If on one day, or one day right after the other, the shor, gored, and then gored again, and then gored again. Now, obviously with warning the owner in between. But for sure, this is clearly marked as a dangerous ox. Okay, some people say the opposite, right, Rabbi Yehuda, but we're going to go with Rabbi Meir right now, who says if they're closer to each other, all the more so this shows, right? If it happens once, and then again, right, you could say they're all random events, but if it happens with a close period of time, for sure this is a crazy ox and needs to be a shor muad, that you're going to be liable for damages because your obligation is to protect this animal more from attacking. Well, if that's the case, Rabbi Meir, well, then let's try to make our comparison. And what would you say? Achlat lata pere bechad yoma kigon te'ena lehavi chazaka. If you ate 3 fruits in one day, okay, you go out to your tree. This is figs, they claim, ripen within a few hours. So you could have a fig that's not ripe now. You go in the afternoon and it's ripe. Okay, I mentioned my mango. Right, a mango tree. So mangoes right now, they're very ripe, and every day I go out, they're redder and redder and redder. Like they keep, if you don't check them, you'll find them on the floor like in a few hours. Then a few hours they could turn. So that's really what they're saying here. If you have a fruit and you take one in the morning, and then you go later in the afternoon, another one ripened, and then you go later in the afternoon, another one ripened. Well, that's like kirev nigichotav. Right? All the more so you should be able to create a chazaka. And then you can create a chazaka in one day of 3 eatings. Right? Now, what they're basically questioning is, why these 3 years? It's very strange. Because really, right, we just kind of take it for granted because it's just an obvious assumption of this chapter that you need 3 years. But this, if you're going to compare it to shor muad, you just need 3 actions of enjoying the peyrot, when, let's say, they ripened at a little bit of a different rate. Dumia de shor muad. So now they say, no, this is the answer. It has to be dumia de shor muad. No, it has to be similar to shor muad. And this is not. Why not? Well, ma shor muad bi'idana, we're going to have we're going to answer it, then we're going to question, answer. We're going to have a back and forth here. It has to be like shor muad. Ma shor muad bi'idana de'it le'hanigicha leita lahanigicha. When the first nigicha happens, the first goring, the second one doesn't yet exist. Obviously, it doesn't exist because it's not going to be a second goring until the first goring happens. They get warned, and then there'll be a second one. But what they're basically saying is they want to compare it to this. So when the first goring happens, there is no second goring yet. It only comes into play later on. So therefore, the fig case doesn't work because the figs are there. They're just not fully ripe, but they're there. They're in existence. So you have to have it, hakanami, it has to be the same way. These fruits are here. Later, lahai peri, the second one you're going to be eating, and that makes perfect sense then that we wait year to year because the crops usually grow by the year. So you're going to have this year's crops, next year's crops, and then the 3rd year's crops. And that's going to explain the 3 years. Okay, we will see a different explanation further on about 3 years. But what they're saying here, the 3 years is basically separating. Just like the shor muad, when we gores first time, there is no second gore yet. When you eat the first time, the other fruits haven't grown yet at all. To which the Gemara is going to try to bring a few other examples, though, where maybe you could. So let's see. What if you ate 3, forget about in one day. You ate 3 fruits one day after the other, though. 3 days, like slav, like capers. Okay, so mentioned in flashback this week, Shuli Mishkan talks about the caper bush and the unique characteristics of the capers. And read all about it. Plus, she brings in other sources where this caper bush is mentioned. Lehave chazaka. So basically, the way the caper works is that when you eat one, okay, they ripen within a day, but like they go from totally inedible, not like a fig that's going to get a little bit closer to ripe. No, totally nothing to ripe in a day. That's what they claim. Okay. Now, if that's the case, it's so unripe that it's as if it's not in existence. Okay, now the Gemara is going to say in the end, it is in existence, it's just not ripe, but it's there. But basically, we're going to say like this. So it's going, you can theoretically create a chazaka in 3 days, to which they say, Hatam peramia ita. No, the fruit is there. It's not ready yet. But it's not like it's not there at all. Whereas if you want to compare to the shor, the nigicha is not there at all, right? There is no such goring. The second one doesn't exist when you're at the first goring.
Okay, so they suggest something else. Achla talta peri betaltin yomi. What if you eat within a period of 30 days? Three eatings of what? Kigon asfasta, like alfalfa, which is the food that, or animal fodder, some sort of food that the animals would eat, or it's like cutting hay or something. It's these growths. If you remember, you cut them before they ripen, and then you give it to the animals to eat. So theoretically, chazaka, you can cut it and then it'll grow again, and then you'll cut it and it'll grow again, you'll cut it and it'll grow. And then basically whatever you cut, right? And then there was nothing else there, you can do it over a period of 30 days. And then you theoretically could do 3 cuttings of this and be able to create a chazaka. To which they say, no, because how are you doing this? You just keep chopping and eating and chopping and eating. That wouldn't work because that's not, when we talk about eating produce, okay, which really just means benefiting from produce, we mean in a normal manner. People don't do that. They don't normally, the way this works is you can cut it and it'll grow back, and you cut it and it'll grow back, and you cut it and it'll grow back. But people normally let it grow for 30 days. They don't do that. They don't just keep cutting it and letting it grow back, cutting it, letting it grow back. They wait till it's fully grown 30 days and then they cut it. So basically, if you would do it within 30 days, that wouldn't be a chazaka because you're not doing it in the normal way that people benefit from produce. So it has to be a normal way in order for you to create this chazaka. To which the Gemara is going to finally ask, which you can guess already maybe, which is, okay, so if you normally cut it after 30 days, so you can create a chazaka in how long? 3 months. Cut it at the end of 30 days of growth, then at the end of 30 days, and then at the end of 30 days. Okay, maybe apropos the beginning of the 3 weeks of haircuts. People get haircuts every 30 days. Anyway, so they say here, achla talta pere bitlata yarche. What if you ate it within 3 months? At the end of every month, kegonas fasta lehave chazaka. You should be able to create a chazaka on that. So they say, well, you're right, you can. And if, in fact, man holche usha, if you're going to make this comparison to shor muad and take it all the way, then you're going to basically come to this conclusion that a spasta you can create a chazaka on in 3 months. And then who would you have to be to make that happen? Well, you'd have to be Rabbi Yishmael. So the holche usha hold like Rabbi Yishmael. Okay, the Rabbi Yishmael hachanami, because Rabbi Yishmael thinks you could do this. How do we know it? Because he says in our Mishna, Ditnan, Rabbi Yishmael omer, Bamed dvarim amurim b'stei lavan. Aval b'stei ilan, kanaset tuato, umasaket zetav, kanaset kitzo, hare elu shalosh shanim. This fits with Rabbi Yishmael, who basically says you have to do 3 complete actions. Right there, it's 3 different fruits, but it seems to be, if you completed the action, like cutting the asfasta, then you'd be able to create a chazaka, as long as you waited a complete month, and then you'd have to say that holche usha goes like Rabbi Yishmael. So the Gemara then asks the Rabbanit, so what about the rabbis then? Where do the rabbis get to 3 years from? So they're going to suggest something which appropriate for Shivasar B'Tammuz, right, which was the lead up to the destruction. This is also leading up to the destruction. Amar Rav Yosef, chaktiv. There's a pasuk for this. What's the pasuk? It's a pasuk we quoted actually in Gittin when we were learning about writing documents and signing them and writing and signing and all that. Sadot b'kesef yiknu. Yirmiyahu tells the people, listen, you're going to go into destruction. You're going to have the korban. You're going to be kicked out of the land, but you're going to come back. So what I want you to do is I want you to buy land, v'katov v'sefer v'chatom. Write it in a book and sign, meaning get a document for it. Why do you need a document? Well, according to the simple reading, right, you want to be able to prove that you're the owner when you come back after 70 years, and you want to have a document to prove it. But here's the creative Gemara on it. The Rabbi Yosef, he says, Sha'arei, when was Yirmiyahu? When was this prophecy from? Omed be'eser. He was in the 10th year of Tzidkiyahu. Now, the destruction happened in the 11th year of Tzidkiyahu's reign. He was the last king. So he was standing in the 10th year, Umashir al-Chatasle, and he was warning about the next year. Basically, how long are they going to be living in this land? Only 2 years. What can you imply from there? That's why he told them you need to write it down. But if they were going to have lived there for 3 years, they wouldn't need to write it down because they could prove it by chazaka of 3 years. Okay, this is learning halacha from prophecies, which you don't usually do, but sometimes, you could say, well, this was a reference. That was the whole idea. If it had been 3 years, they wouldn't have needed the document. The whole reason they need the document is because they're now standing in the 10th year. They're going to be gone by the 11th year, so they're going to have 2 years of living there, and that's it. And it's not going to be enough to prove ownership. They're going to need their documents. To which Abaye says, what are you talking about? He could have just giving them good advice. Nobody says you shouldn't have your document. It just says you don't need to have your document, but maybe it was just giving them good advice. Write down that you're going to be the owner so that you can easily prove it. It doesn't necessarily mean this is halacha, and we're going to continue to see why Abaye thinks it's clear that it was just good advice and it wasn't a halachic thing, and therefore rejects this answer. Okay, so what did we do today? We started with a whole list of things about chesed batim here. We're now going to basically have, the Mishna has 3 different categories. The first 2 have to do with fields and other things, okay? But in the field category, mainly we're going to be talking about fields, although we will talk about the other things as well. But a lot of the discussion is really about fields. And within fields, there's 2 different kinds. There's grain fields and fruit fields. And in the fruit field, we saw this unique opinion of Rabbi Yishmael that you just need to do 3 different types of actions with each fruit, or even one fruit, 3 different complete actions, according to what we just concluded, and that would be fine. Then within the wheat fields, there's 2 different kinds of wheat fields. There's one that work on rainwater, which only produce once a year. For that, you're going to need even less time, just a little bit in each of those years of getting produce, and that's sufficient. If it produces all year long, then you're going to need 3 complete years. And then we got to the Gemara, which basically said, where do we get this 3 years from? And then we basically said it's like shor muad. And in normal case, 3 times would be 3 complete years. In some things, like asfaste, it doesn't necessarily need to be 3 complete years. And then that really only matches Rabbi Yishmael. So now we're left with a question, because we right now rejected Rav Yosef's answer about learning it from Yirmiyahu. And now we're left with trying to figure out where the rabbis get 3 years from. And with that, we'll finish for today. Wishing everyone a good day and a good fast.